The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Thank you so much for joining me. The gubernatorial race has finally been completed. The counting for that race has been completed in the state of Arizona. Katie Hobbs has defeated Kari Lake. Kari Lake was the leading voice in the gubernatorial races across the country, representing the Stop the Steal, Stand for Donald Trump, Make America Great Again faction. That's what she represented. And she lost last night, finally, when the counting was complete. I want to dig into that race a little bit. More specifically, I want to dig into the reaction from the right because they really believed the polls. And the polls, many of which were junk polls. They polled without any change of their models based on what happened with Roe versus Wade. They polled Republican heavy, right? And so it skewed. These polls that they were counting on skewed to the Republican Party, and they were wrong. And the Republicans who were locked in an echo chamber are now losing their minds. They're in a full-blown tizzy over the fact that Katie Hobbs has lost. Now, before I get to the polling portion of this, I want to play a clip from Katie Hobbs so that you can get an understanding of who she was and who she is. Here is a clip of her threatening the media. Here's the question that the journalist asked in this clip. The question has been cut off, but I want you to understand the full context. In this conversation, or in this reply from Kari Lake, the journalist asked the question, would Kari Lake serve a full term, or would she consider running alongside Donald Trump in 2024? This was the reaction and the response from the now defeated Kari Lake in the gubernatorial race for Arizona.
I'm going to not only be the governor of Arizona for 4 years, I'm going to do 2 terms. I'm going to be your worst freaking nightmare for 8 years. And we will reform the media as well. We're going to make you guys into journalists again. So get ready. It's going to be a fun 8 years. I can't wait to be working with you guys.
There she was giving threats, idle threats now, because she's not going to be governor for 2 years to run in 2024. Neither will she be the governor for 4 years. And most likely she will not win in 2026. She won't serve as governor of Arizona at all. Here's the problem for her. She not only insulted journalists, of course, she lambasted liberals and progressives as socialists, as communists. She even attacked the John McCain constituents in Arizona. Now, John McCain, who was senator for many, many years, is dead and gone, but he still has a lot of standing in the state. And it did not work well for Kari Lake to attack everybody. But she was moving underneath this false confidence that Donald Trump has provided quite a few people. They really believe that the majority of their individual states, and collectively they believe that all of this country truly represents MAGA, Make America Great Again. Well, she found out the hard way.
Between the McCain Republicans and the Trump Republicans, a fierce battle we've seen over a couple of different cycles. One of the Republicans in this state said that Kari Lake told a legion of John McCain supporters across Arizona that they could go to hell. Tonight, they returned the favor. So
that was a clip from CNN. Jake Tapper interviewing a reporter who was on the ground there in Arizona. Of course, they returned fire. I absolutely love that phrasing because there was a level of hubris. There still is a level of hubris that goes along with conservatism in general, but Make America Great Again specifically. They honestly believe that they had the moral high ground. They believe that they had the statistical high ground, meaning they believe they had the numbers. And they honestly felt that the way forward was to carry themselves and comport their campaigns to behave like Donald Trump did. Donald Trump was an anomaly. And so much so that he himself cannot get away. He didn't get away with the same shtick the second time around. And so a lot of politicians really believed that they could double down on the ignorant, double down on the bigotry, double down on the crassness, and could tell voters to go to hell. Kari Lake found out the hard way. Here's an interview of Steve Bannon, who is the lead proponent of Stop the Steal, one of the number one supporters of Kari Lake, and of course, all in for Donald Trump still to this day. He was being interviewed by Tim Miller on Showtime, the circus show on Showtime. Take a listen into this interview, not only for the sake of the things that Steve Bannon is saying about Kari Lake and her campaign, but also about how Tim Miller handled him. I absolutely love this clip. Take a listen in.
You're the king of the Stop the Steal movement. What are you doing here? Shouldn't she be running away from you, running towards the moderates, trying to get the old John McCain, Jeff Flake voter?
I think she's going to get that. You know, Kari Lake's the future. Kari Lake, this energy, this populist, nationalist energy.
So what's she doing to appeal to those voters, the moderates? It seems like she's running against those people.
No, I tell you what she's running for. This is the independent vote and the working class and middle class out here.
Why is she still talking about the 2020 election?
Wait to the House of Representatives next year when we have a real J6 committee.
Oh, come on.
And we're going to adjudicate. Oh, no, we're going to adjudicate all of 3 November. We can't.
We're not
really
going to believe this.
100%.
You seriously
100%.
think it was a stolen steal?
I 100% know it's stolen.
And she still thinks it was, and she's still talking about it?
100%.
People stormed the Capitol over this shit, dude. These are lies.
That was not by Trump. That was
These are lies over the lies.
It's not, by the way.
If you weren't lying about it, that wouldn't happen.
Hang on.
Come on, you don't believe this, man. I'll argue with you about the border. You don't believe this shit. I'm not doing 100%. This anymore. I'm not doing it.
And that was the end of the interview. This is how you should handle these monsters. I want to call them morons, but they're not morons. They are intelligent people using their intelligence to undermine democracy, but I digress. Conservative media did not take it well. This next clip is from Sean Hannity last night when Fox News itself called the gubernatorial race for Katie Hobbs. I want to play this not only for you to enjoy the schadenfreude of his somberness, but I want you to listen very closely to something that he says about Katie Hobbs, because Katie Hobbs served as Secretary of State just prior to, or actually she is Secretary of State getting ready to move into the governor's mansion. Take a listen in.
All right, apparently they did have a drop in Arizona, and Fox is projecting that Democratic Secretary of State, who should have recused herself, Katie Hobbs, has been elected governor of Arizona. Straight ahead.
Sean Hannity sounds so despondent. But the most important thing about that clip is obviously the weaponized and the strategic hypocrisy. You recall back in 2018 when Governor Brian Kemp, or then Secretary of State Brian Kemp in the state of Georgia, ran against Stacey Abrams. He actively engaged in voter suppression tactics that could only be accomplished from the office of the Secretary of State. I will say this, if Katie Hobbs, which I doubt, and there's been no indication that she has done this, but I'm just floating this as a possibility, if she happened to have engaged in voter suppression techniques, I would have a problem with her as well. But there's no evidence of that whatsoever. And so the hypocrisy is glaring. It is strategic. I don't point it out for the sake of hypocrisy. I point it out to let you know that under any circumstance, it doesn't matter. Republicans will always be hypocritical if it gives them the strategic advantage. And that clip of Sean Hannity expresses that exact sentiment. Okay, let's take our first break. We're going to go to the patron party first. I want to welcome all of our newest patrons and thank all of you for supporting the show while we've been in so many different changes. This last year has been rather tumultuous, but we have persevered through a lot of changes. And most importantly, we've continued the work, and that work is absolutely not possible without the patrons. So let's get it.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. I want to give a very special welcome and thank you to all of our newest patrons. 2 new patrons overnight. Very special welcome to Jessica Gonzalez. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. And Militant Twinkie X, thank you so much for becoming a patron. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by, well, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I got caught up on the beat. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/the BPD show, where you get the full podcast, the full hour. You also get ad-free content, no commercials, and you get access to our patron parties that happen twice a month. The family is always there, DJ exclusive. It's a party, and I'm there as much as I possibly can be. We'll be back right after this break.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. A little bit more news on the national front. Donald Trump is scheduled to make an announcement today, and I considered waiting and holding the podcast until after he made the announcement, but by all indications, he is getting ready to announce his run for president in 2024. This is interesting for so many reasons, notwithstanding the fact that he's Donald Trump and he's a chaos agent number one, Putin, Manchurian candidate number one. But it's also very interesting for two reasons. He's under investigation, and we fully expect the Department of Justice under the leadership of Merrick Garland to bring some. I don't know if he's going to jail, and I think Trump's run in 2024 is a hedge against him being literally arrested, indicted, and tried and found guilty, because he understands if he's running for president and he's a lead contender, that creates not a constitutional crisis, but certainly a public relations crisis that Merrick Garland has already shown his antipathy towards engaging in. It's not as though Merrick Garland is excited about charging a former president with espionage, with the removal of all of those nuclear documents from the White House that were found in Mar-a-Lago over the summer. So there's a hesitation in the Department of Justice underneath Merrick Garland to hold Donald Trump accountable anyway, because, well, at a certain level, some people unfortunately appear to be above the law, especially when it becomes hyper political to the point where it could divide the country and devolve into a civil war. Now, I dropped that last piece, devolve into a civil war, because this is what they always when we woke up this morning, what was trending on Twitter was civil war. It was also trending, do not concede, talking to Kari Lake. So when I say that, it's not hyperbole on my part. It is just merely reporting what the morons on the other side of the aisle are engaging in. So there's a hesitation on the part of the Department of Justice to hold Donald Trump accountable because of all of the backlash that will come from it. However, with the new divisions in the Republican Party, there's a deep divide in the Republican Party because of how badly they lost in the midterms. There are quite a few people who have turned on Donald Trump, a long list of Republicans who have now turned on Donald Trump. Fox News has turned on Donald Trump. Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Fox News. I mean, there's several people candidates and politicians. One of the few politicians who's still standing by Donald Trump is Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she knows where she got her juice from in the first place. So if nothing else, she's loyal to the guy who brought her to the dance. But I bring up the loyalty question because if enough Republicans actually part ways with Donald Trump and throw their weight behind Ron DeSantis, there's a good possibility that Donald Trump will be held accountable. Well, all of that begins today as we see his announcement. And by the time you listen to this, many of you who listen to it in the evening times, it may be the case that he has already announced. We fully expect that to happen, and we expect it to be a sideshow because everything that Donald Trump engages in is a sideshow. So we'll keep our eye on that, and we'll bring you audio of that on tomorrow's podcast. Make sure you check out the podcast on a daily basis. We are back on a daily basis, bringing you the very best we can in political commentary. That said, the war that's happening and brewing in the Republican Party is really centered on two fronts. Who is the leader of the Republican Party? Who is going to run, in other words, who's going to run for president and potentially win the White House for them in 2024? There's also another war that's brewing. Who will be the Speaker of the House now that the Republicans have sealed a 1-seat majority in the House of Representatives. Now, this is probably the tightest margins that we've seen in the House of Representatives ever. This also, having a 1-seat majority, also empowers a lot of small coalitions like the progressives, the Progressive Caucus. It empowers a lot of radical Republicans. But most of all, what it gives an opportunity for is for there to be some type of negotiation around who will be the Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy fancied himself to be the next in line to be the Speaker of the House. He all but campaigned on that leading up to the midterms. And now there has been a list of Republicans. I think some 50 or 60 Republicans who are elected signed a document saying that there should be no election for leadership in the House or the Senate. So it's not just Kevin McCarthy. It's also Mitch McConnell, who's facing an internal revolution, an internal civil war inside of the Republican Party as they have a power grab. So this is going to be very interesting to see if there is a coalition that can be formed that will reject the far right wing in this country and put in a quote unquote more moderate Republican. Now, I am of the firm belief that there's no such thing as a moderate Republican. They are all extremists. So I really don't have a horse in the race in terms of who's going to become the next Republican Speaker of the House to replace Nancy Pelosi. My horse, what I'm waiting for is to see the moves and the swings in the balance of power, because it can very easily go when you have a 1-seat majority. It could very easily turn into a Democratic majority, right? If any particular, if someone retires, if any particular congressperson dies, it really can swing the seat of power very quickly. So we're up for some chaotic times, politically speaking, in the House of Representatives. The margin in the Senate seems to favor the Democratic Party pretty strongly, especially when you consider that in the case of a tie, you have the Vice President Kamala Harris available to come in and vote. So that maintains the power control for the Democratic Party. But what's most important is, can they actually get anything done? That's the question. We can all but forgo the idea of getting legislation passed because the House of Representatives underneath the control of the Republican Party is most certainly going to do nothing to help Joe Biden sign something into law. He's not going. The Republicans are not going to give Joe Biden anything. But what the Senate can accomplish with the majority, they can certainly vote in and approve multiple justices throughout the judiciary. And we fully expect them to do that. In fact, if they do not do that, it would not only be political malpractice, but it will set this country back even further when you consider how many justices and judges Donald Trump appointed in his short 4-year term. Now, you will notice that I'm not talking about the country and our leadership actually getting something done for the people. You'll notice I haven't mentioned anything about the legislature and the president joining together to protect our environment. You notice I haven't talked about anything that's actual progress. Up until this point, we really just covered the horse race. Well, that's because at the end of the day, we have yet to see anything be done for actual progress in the long run. I mean, we're still playing around with climate change. We're still playing around with voting rights. We certainly don't give a damn about police brutality against black people. So all of these things are really talking about, all this conversation about the horse race is really, how do we stave off fascism, not how do we actually progress towards a more progressive and brighter future. And that's a really sad state of affairs when you consider how many problems we have that are deeply seated in this country. It's a really sad state of affairs when all we can do at this juncture is just stave off Gilead, from The Handmaid's Tale. And don't get me wrong, I'm all in for stopping the overthrow of democracy in exchange for a Republican-led theocratic fascist state. No question. I think we have a full response. We are responsible. Without any question in my mind, we are responsible for stopping fascism at all costs. Because it's not as though we can make progress if the Republicans get full control over this country. They have made it clear that they intend on overthrowing democracy because democracy is inconvenient for them. It's inconvenient for their power grabs. So we do have to hold the line, and I think that's all we are really getting in 2022. We have held the line, but I don't believe that we have anything. We don't have the majorities to move the ball forward. We still have people like Joe Manchin, and this is why the race in Georgia, the runoff on December 6th between Warnock and Walker is so important, because at a minimum, if we can get that 51st seat, we will be able to neutralize one of the two rotating villains, Kyrsten Sinema or Joe Manchin, who put themselves in position expressly to stop progress when the Democrats had the majority between 2020 and 2022. Well, we can at least neutralize one of them. But Joe Biden has already come out and said that he doesn't believe we have the majorities to get Roe versus Wade codified. And while that is extremely infuriating to hear, it's true. We're not even going to have the House of Representatives. So codifying Roe versus Wade is all but dead on arrival. So that's where we are in American politics. We're not at the point where we can actually move the ball towards a progressive future where we could protect the environment. That phrase is so innocuous. Protect the environment. Save the planet. Save our children's future. Have you noticed that it's hot as hell in November? Like, Thanksgiving is next week and it's still warm enough to go to the beach. We are doing nothing on that front. We still see all over the country black people being killed. Not just black people, but I'm a black man and I'm going to call that out first. But people, this police state abusing their power and murdering citizens. We're not doing anything to stop that. We're not even protecting the right to vote, which is why the state of Florida was able to get away with their gerrymandered districts, which removed black power and enshrined Republican power for the foreseeable future, because the Democrats in power were unable or unwilling to actually pass a voting rights bill. At some point, we have to make progress. But right now, I have to say, at least we stopped fascism for one more day. It hasn't left. The fascists are not gone. The theocratic fascists still intend on overthrowing democracy, and so we can't let our guards down. But at some point, we have to move away from this entrenched warfare, this just holding the line mentality, and actually moving forward for progress. Sometimes it doesn't pay to be ahead of the curve, but I've been given the blessing or the curse, depending on how you look at it, of being able to see just a little bit ahead of most people. I was calling out Elon Musk long before a lot of people even thought that he was a bad guy, let alone a fascist. But folks really didn't like it when I did that. I was right about Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, has taken a job at Fox News. She is now a contributor at Fox News. Big surprise. The turncoat that we called out back as early as, I think, 2017. Whenever she first came on the stage, we started calling her out. I started calling her out because, well, you know, people aren't as slick as they think they are. You know, the funny thing about when people gaslight you, you know that they're gaslighting you. And sometimes you just don't feel like arguing with them and you just let them get away with it. And so they think they're really smart and they think they really fooled you. But all along, it's like, I knew you were lying all the time. Kind of relating that to relationships. You know, a lot of times women know when we're BSing and we think we're getting away with it, but they're just like, I'm not going to fight with you today. Same kind of thing. I saw Tulsi Gabbard for the turncoat that she was years ago. And a lot of people didn't like it when I called her out about it, but she hosted on behalf of Tucker Carlson last night. And it was, my God, the most boring 2 minutes that I ever watched, because I couldn't really watch more than that. But her entire agenda has been about moving Democrats, leftists in particular, over and sheep herding them over to the Republican Party. And now her transformation is complete, right? She's reached her final form, which is a Fox News contributor and an anti-democratic Republican conservative. That's who she is. I mean, we've been calling out people on this show for a long time, and being first to call someone out doesn't normally pay, right? Called out Jimmy Dore, Breonna Joy Gray, all those, the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal. Like, we've been calling that entire cabal out for a long time, and folks got extremely mad. I mean, cancel their patronage mad. Patreon.com/the BPD show if you want to be on the right side of history, because we have to replace a lot of those patrons who left because they fell for Tulsi Gabbard. They fell for the Jimmy Dores. They fell for all these people who clearly, if you listen to what they said and how they positioned themselves, how they always found a way to make it not about the crimes that were being committed by Republicans, by conservatives, about the bigotry that was being forwarded by conservatives, and about the hatred and the policies that were detrimental to everybody, right? We're not talking about the tacit support of just like a milquetoast liberal. We're talking about the indirect or tacit and sometimes direct support of mouth-breathing conservatives who want to overthrow democracy. And hell, we even called them out long before they admitted that they were nothing more than Putin propagandists. Right? So it's not even just about American politics, it's about international politics. And I'm not trying to have a I told you so session. I'm just trying to point out something that's very important. When your gut, let me start that sentence over. When your instinct and your gut is telling you that something is wrong with the person and with their policies and what they believe in and what they stand for and what they're fighting for, trust your instinct, trust your gut. And if by chance you had no clue that Tulsi Gabbard was going to come out and end up being a full-blown Republican authoritarian fascist, well, then just keep listening to my show, because we called it out a long time ago. And we called it out about Elon Musk. I really started this segment to talk about Elon Musk, who overnight fired engineers at Twitter because he didn't like how they engaged with him publicly. Several people, this is according to TheVerge.com, several people have called out Elon Musk's tweet about Twitter's poor performance. One of them seems to have given up their job by doing so. Twitter has seen thousands of layoffs, departures, and resignations since Elon Musk took over. But one of the latest staffing changes appears to have been personal. The company's new CEO tweeted out that Eric Fraunhofer, an employee who had publicly disagreed with him about the platform, had been fired. The saga started on Sunday when Elon Musk tweeted an apology for Twitter being so slow in many countries and implied that the poor performance is because the app does over 1,000 poorly batched remote procedure calls to load the home timeline, basically saying the app has to reach out to other servers a bunch of times and wait for a response for each request. Fraunhofer, who tweeted that he spent 6 years working on Twitter for Android, quote tweeted Musk's statement saying it was incorrect. I want to skip a couple of paragraphs and go to this part. Musk's seemingly final word on the issue came in response to a discussion on whether the engineer should have brought his concerns about the original tweet up in private on Slack rather than publicly calling Musk out. A commenter in the thread said that Musk probably doesn't want Fraunhofer on his team after the developer tweeted that Musk should have asked questions about the slowness issues privately, to which Musk replied, "He's fired." Not only this engineer, but several engineers overnight were fired. Anyone who called Donald Trump, they're one and the same, Elon Musk out about Elon Musk calling out their work publicly. Elon Musk came in, started making changes, messing up the app. I mean, literally, if you're trying to use Twitter right now, you can't, and you use a two-step authentication to log in, two-step verification to log in, rather. You can't get in because Elon Musk went in and cut off some of those features, saying that they weren't important, right? The wheels are falling off at Twitter, but yet Elon Musk is blaming the people that he fired when these are steps that are being taken by Elon Musk. And so some of the people who work there are no longer work there, but up until this point, they were working on the app trying to keep it running despite the chaos that was being brought by Elon Musk. They got tired of it and said, if you're going to publicly embarrass us about your mistakes, then we have the right to call you out about it. And they all lost their job. Now, thankfully, the one engineer, Fraunhofer, got hired immediately. And I'm quite sure at some point he's going to have an opportunity for a wrongful termination lawsuit. But I bring this up to say this, folks. Again, as I stated yesterday, this is intentional. No one can look at what Elon Musk is doing and actually say that he's improving the app or making an improvement for his investment's sake. The value is declining. Advertisers are leaving in droves. Millions of dollars in ad revenue is being lost because of the $8 verification fiasco. Every step that Elon Musk is taking is a step that you would expect for someone who is simply trying to destroy the tool. And the reason we can come to that conclusion is not only because of the fruit that he is bearing. I mean, no one can honestly say that he has improved the app. In short order, he is devastating the app. But also, we see the result is going to be the inability of organizers across the globe to find one another and to organize against these authoritarian regimes like Saudi Arabia, who has a large investment in Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. Simple as that. Elon Musk has never been the paragon of a hopeful future. He has monetized the future. He's monetized the idea of progress. And he's done so for his own self-aggrandizement, his own bottom line. But in this instance, his ego is destroying his own bottom line. So maybe we get a twofer. Maybe he destroys Twitter and destroys himself along the way. Because can anyone honestly say that Elon Musk is a highly qualified thinker who should be running a corporation at this point? Well, if you are, then you're probably one of those weird fanboys who bought the $8 blue check mark. And that's what Elon Musk was counting on. He was counting on his popularity being so high, counting on people loving him so much that he would be able to fund the shortfall that he was having in revenues at Twitter just sheerly off the fact that people wanted to buy something from him. The Dunning-Kruger effect, which says that essentially sometimes people think they're smarter than they are because they're too dumb to realize that they're not smart. If I were to paraphrase it, I think now we have categorical proof that it is exacerbated by money. The more money a person has, the more intense the effects of Dunning-Kruger. But I digress. Listen, folks, that's all for the public show. Go to patreon.com/the BPD show for the next 15 to 30 minutes of content. And we will see you next time.